So I've been a longtime fan of the James Bond movies, really since I was a kid. In fact, I grew up on Roger Moore, and and of course went back to watch the Sean Connery films, the one George Lazenby film on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and then of course Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan. I was around during the whole Remington Steele fiasco, and of course, all the way to the end, the Daniel Craig films. So I was as interested as anybody in the fairly recent news about what is it? Amazon has taken over the James Bond franchise, and now the big news is that the director Denis Villeneuve is going to be taking over the next James Bond film, which is kind of bittersweet for me, and I'll get to that later. But just as a history, I don't think any James Bond movie is perfect, even though I'm a fan of the series, because they have a certain formula, and sometimes that formula drags, and sometimes you have to suspend your disbelief, obviously. But when I was watching the Roger Moore films, they were fun, they were funny, but I was ready for something more serious. And so when Timothy Dalton took over, I feel like he created, I think people wrongly suggest he's a tougher Bond. He's a tough Bond, but what makes Timothy Dalton different James Bond is I've always felt that Roger Moore, Sean Connery, certainly Pierce Brosnan after, all they were charming and they were charismatic, but they also felt like sociopaths to me. None of these Bonds would have friends. None of these Bonds actually truly cares about anybody. They might protect the Bond girl. They certainly, will fulfill their mission for country. But even with the Bond women, I don't really feel like they ever cared for the women. Maybe on Her Majesty's Secret Service, of course, with his wife. But other than that, they just felt like flirtations. They felt like part of the job, really. And Bond's having a little fun with him, and that's all it ever seemed. And Timothy Dalton, I don't know what it is really, but he seemed like he did not seem like a sociopath. He is a man who has friends, as we saw in the beginning of License to Kill, and he does seem to care about his Bond girls, particularly Cara Malovi in The Living Daylights. That romantic storyline felt like somewhat real, and it felt like the most romantic coupling, if you will, in the entire series. And yes, that includes on Her Majesty's Secret Service and even Casino Royale. But I can see why somebody would argue that they think that Casino Royale is more romantic. But I've always felt like the Bond films truly reflect the personality of the actors playing Bond. So Roger Moore played Bond, very funny, very cheeky, a little bit campy, and guess what? The movies became cheeky and campy. When Pierce Brosnan took over, I know he wanted to be like Sean Connery, but the truth of the matter is he was much more like Roger Moore, and that's the problem. Pierce Brosnan didn't ever bring anything new to the role of James Bond. He was more of a retread of Roger Moore, maybe a little bit of Sean Connery, but that's just it. He didn't have anything else. And so what you have with Pierce Brosnan, and I know a lot of people grew up with Pierce Brosnan, and that's their James Bond. And I like Pierce Brosnan. I think he's given really good performances in other movies too. But with Brosnan, you have a lot of charisma, a lot of charm, and a lot of humor, but it's also empty. Like, he's charismatic, but he's a little bit empty. Slick, but empty. And that's what all four films feel like. They feel charismatic, they feel charming, they feel very slick and well made, but kind of empty. Timothy Dalton's James Bond has a lot of depth. His relationships feel stronger with his Bond women, with Q, with Felix Leiter, and he seems tough, and he seems intense at times, but he also, again, seems caring, and there's a depth of emotion there. And the movies reflect that. That is why my two favorite James Bond films are The Living Daylights and License to Kill. Now, I do like Casino Royale very much, and Daniel Craig has been an excellent Bond. I just don't like the direction, really, that those Bond films, the Craig Bond films took. They're less episodic. They're kind of somewhat related to each other, and there's other issues. Casino Royale is excellent, top 3 at least. I even liked Quantum of Solace, believe it or not. Not as big a fan of Skyfall, and I know a lot of people, rank that on the top tier, but I have a lot of reasons why I don't like Skyfall. So now we come to the new era of James Bond, and I must say, what I like is they pick a director who's highly acclaimed. That means they're definitely taking the new series seriously. I'm just not the biggest fan of Villeneuve's films. There's a look to these films that I don't quite like. There's a coldness to them that is not my favorite. And for me, anyway, they kind of lack a sense of fun. And darn it, these James Bond films should be fun. And so I don't know. I have real mixed feelings about Denis Villeneuve taking over. Now, I believe in an interview recently he said something when he was talking about James Bond. He was talking about how he likes, I think he said something about the fun quality of James Bond films and how he enjoys that. So maybe he will bring, a new look and some fun to the franchise. And maybe I shouldn't judge a movie I haven't seen yet based on his past films. So, having said that, I've always been a proponent that Kenneth Branagh should direct at least one James Bond film. I think Kenneth Branagh brings a sense of style and a sense of fun to a lot of the films he has directed. Obviously, a lot of the Shakespeare films, Much Ado About Nothing, is extremely fun and accessible and charming and very well made. But he's made blockbusters. He made Disney's Cinderella, which was excellent. He made the first Thor film. And he made a spy film, Jack Ryan, that Jack Ryan movie with Chris Pine, which I think got mixed reviews. But he can certainly direct action. He's got a great sense of camera style. And I think he would direct a really entertaining and fun James Bond film someday. I know Villeneuve is doing it now, but maybe in the future Kenneth Branagh will be able to direct a Bond film someday. I haven't even talked about his Hercule Poirot films. The last one, Haunting in Venice, being the best of the three. But I'd like to see that. And as far as who should play James Bond, that, of course, everybody is discussing that. Everybody is speculating. I know a lot of people want Henry Cavill. I feel like that's a little too on the nose for me. He's a little too bulky for my taste to play Bond. Plus, I just don't feel like I ever get a sense of any depth from Henry Cavill, and when he's played Superman, or really any of the other things I've seen him play. It's all surface level. I mean, he's charming, he's good looking, he's, ridiculously muscular. But I need more intensity from James Bond. I need somebody lean and intense, but also charismatic. And I think they should look outside the box. It doesn't have to be a Brit. Maybe someone from Australia or New Zealand. There's an actor I like. He's the same age as Henry Cavill, but he's leaner. He's in great shape. Got a great voice. 6 feet tall. He's got dark hair, an intense, distinctive look. And his name is Liam McIntyre, and anybody who's ever seen like the last 2 seasons of Spartacus knows this. He's an excellent actor, and he can be intense, but also charismatic. And I would love for them to at least consider somebody like that. It doesn't have to be Liam McIntyre, but somebody like Liam McIntyre. But anyway, I'm excited. I don't actually have Amazon Prime or anything like that, but my hope is, since it is James Bond, that they'll at least release these new Bond films on some sort of physical media, obviously Blu-ray, or 4K, what have you. But I've always looked forward to the next James Bond film, and let's see what Villeneuve does with this.